Hey guys, before we get into today's episode with Jonathan, I want to talk about this beautiful can of Ghost that I have sitting on my desk. I have the straw bango right here. I know you can get those at Circle K. They're at every Circle K across the nation. Go get that flavor. It's awesome. You get that strawberry, you get that mango. It's great stuff. I also want to tell you guys about the flavor of the summer. It's here. The all-new Ghost Energy Iced Tea Lemonade. It's bursting with lemonade and finishing with a smooth sweet tea flavor. This can is the perfect ride along for summer all the time, pretty much. So we'll be sipping it on the golf course, pickleball courts, and at the beach all summer. Like all other Ghost Energy, it's fully transparent, fully loaded, feel-good energy. It's zero sugars, no artificial flavors, 200 milligrams of natural caffeine. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. I can't wait, especially pour it over some ice. It's good stuff. Love the straw bango, and of course, you guys know my favorite flavor is the Welch's grape. That's everywhere as well. I saw that's in the Costco pack, so be sure to check that out. That is amazing. It's literally like the Welch's grape juice that you remember as a kid, but with 200 milligrams of caffeine. So it's good stuff. Go check that out. It's now sold nationwide for a limited time only, that iced tea lemonade. So go get it. Don't sleep on the new epic flavor. Make sure you drink Ghost this summer. It's that simple. All right, bang. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Today I am joined on Zoom by Jonathan Mays. He is the editor-in-chief at Restaurant Business Magazine. Jonathan, I started following you probably a couple weeks ago. You talk all things like chain fast food, sit-down fast food, biz, and it fascinated me. So thank you for joining me, and you got a cool job.
Thanks, man. Yes, I do.
So how'd you get into it?
Dumb luck.
Really?
That's literally it. Yeah, yeah. I've been like 20 years ago. I've been a journalist for way too long. And I was living in Charleston. We moved back up to Minneapolis where my family lives and needed a job. That's basically it. And I answered a want ad in a newspaper, which even for the time was ancient, was like old. It was on the way out the door,
Mm-hmm.
and just hit it off with the editor. I was at Franchise Times magazine, and then I ended up writing about restaurants there, and that's how that started.
Did you have an interest in restaurants before that?
No, I had no idea that I'd be covering restaurants. Not even close. I had no idea. I wanted to be a baseball writer.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
eventually I realized that I really wanted to have a job, and I mean, it's hard to get a job in sports. And so I ended up covering politics, which frankly isn't a whole lot different. And then I covered business for a long time, which I found more interesting than I would have thought. And I had no idea. I had zero idea. But man, it's just been a blast.
Well,
Covering restaurants is fun.
yeah, it's a lot lighter content covering Wendy's earnings calls versus political stuff, right?
Yeah, so sometimes it gets political though, especially when you're covering Papa John's earnings call in 2017.
Were you covering that?
I was covering that, yeah.
So you were
Yeah.
on that one.
I was on the infamous call in which John Schnatter started hammering the NFL over the protest. Yeah. I've never, and that went crazy on what was called Twitter at the time.
Hmm.
And I've just never, I mean, those things are, have you ever listened to an earnings call? It is just, they can be really, I mean, if they're exciting, that is a really good day. Because a lot of times they're just really, really dry. And especially for somebody who's not a nerd like me, you would listen to that and immediately fall asleep. So
Hmm.
if you have insomnia, they're really good for that. So and then Schnatter he just went off, and he went off. You have scripted remarks on these things, and he clearly went off script. Or if he didn't go off script, that's even more problematic, frankly. If they were scripted remarks, it was awful. So yeah, he it was that was a memorable one.
So in that moment where you're like, this is going to be a big story, or
Well, it became pretty evident. That was the thing about, like, Twitter immediately made it. It blew up.
yeah.
Man, it went completely crazy. I don't even know how many impressions I got that day off Twitter, but it was nuts.
Right, and I'm sure you were just sitting there kind of like taking notes, like a little going through the
Yeah.
motions, and then you just like kind of perk up, like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that was we were kind of listening for what he would say about the NFL because at the time there had been a report about what, he about Papa John's frustrations and stuff like that with those protests. And so we were kind of listening for it, and yeah, and then he kind of went off.
Is that obviously the craziest earnings call you've ever listened to?
No, no, actually it isn't.
What's
No, I've seen, yeah, yeah. I mean, on occasion, you'll get one of these smaller companies, and those earnings calls can be a little crazy. There was one years ago involving a chain called Kona Grill, and there was a literal argument back and forth between an investor and the executive, which was completely out of hand. So no, not really the craziest earnings call, but certainly the one that that was the most public.
what rounds out the top three? What would be the third one?
Well, probably the Wendy's call when they talked about when they were going to think about surge pricing, but it was just sort of like an offhand comment. Nobody really poked it, but in hindsight, especially, that was one of the crazier ones.
Was there
Yeah,
actually
on
some?
occasion. Hmm?
Was there actually some fire behind that? Because I remember there's a lot of smoke that for people that don't know that Wendy's was going to do surge pricing and change prices throughout the day.
Yeah, no, I think he misspoke.
Yeah,
But the issue is that yeah, he just misspoke.
yeah, that's it. Who as far as like right now, as far as the chain fast food, who's like the three kings? Like who are doing things right?
Oh.
Everything's going kind of well right now.
Oh, right. Well, probably the biggest one at the moment is Taco Bell.
Okay.
Taco Bell, I mean, nobody did really well in the first quarter. I mean, very few companies did really well. Taco Bell um, did 9% same-store sales growth, which is really good for a chain that big. They're the fourth largest restaurant chain in the US. And so for them to do 9% is pretty extraordinary. And they just kind of hit it. They just hit it on all cylinders right now. Uh, I mean, yeah, to put that into context, I think they're like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 11 times the size of their nearest competitor. They're insane. And they're just doing things exceptionally well. I mean, they add chicken nuggets to their menu. It's supposed to be a Mexican chain,
Yeah.
but chicken nuggets. So, and they do things like they had this event called Live Más Live where they revealed all their products for the course of the year, sort of like the Apple CES event, or their developers event where they reveal their latest iPhone. They do that for tacos, which is kind of crazy. So they do really well. Chili's. Chili's is the one we talk about the most because that chain, for all intents and purposes, should probably be dying. And their sales were up 30% in the first quarter. Which, I mean, if you would have told me 2 years ago, even a year and a half ago, that Chili's would ever do 30 plus percent sales growth, I would have demanded you give me whatever hard drugs you're on. It was, I mean, there are four casual dining chains that some of us old people grew up with in the 90s. There was Applebee's, Chili's, TGI Fridays, and Ruby Tuesdays. Two of those companies filed for bankruptcy. TGI Fridays filed for bankruptcy very recently and is on a steep decline and just a complete disaster. Ruby Tuesday was a complete disaster. Applebee's is really, really struggling. And then there's Chili's, which, throws some stuff on social media and does 31% same-store sales growth. They're insane. And then another one is Raising Cane's.
Mm.
And Cane's is probably one of the most extraordinary chains right now because they sell just chicken fingers.
Yeah.
You like you've been to Raising Cane's?
Raising Cane's, yeah, they're actually a big sponsor of ours. Yeah, so I'm very
Okay,
familiar.
well,
Yeah.
so well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not bashing Raising Cane's on a podcast in which they're the sponsor. But no, they do $6 million per restaurant just selling chicken fingers. Which, to put it in context, McDonald's does an average McDonald's does just under $4 million, and McDonald's has breakfast. Raising Cane's does not, and McDonald's has like 100 some menu items. Raising Cane's basically does chicken fingers, sauce, fries, coleslaw, and bread, and then beverages,
Hmm.
and that's it. So I believe that on a per square foot basis, which means, like in terms of the size of the restaurant, on a per square foot basis, they're probably the most successful restaurant chain in the country right now. And they do one product and do it exceptionally well. So there
But
you go.
isn't that kind of what people might be learning? Like, aren't these menus getting too big to a degree? Isn't, some people trying to get in the breakfast lane when they shouldn't? Isn't that a problem? What do you think about that?
No, yeah, no, it's that is the wave of the future. Like when you go to a restaurant, you're not saying, all right, we're just going to go to restaurant and you get what you want. You're going to go out for, you that night, you might say you want pizza, you want chicken, you want, or you just have your favorite beverage concept, or you want a burger or whatever, or maybe you want to try something. And the thing is, like, if you just hit the thing that you do really well over and over and over and over and over again, then it shows in the quality and in your service. And if you add a bunch of stuff to your menu, like like breakfast and stuff like that, or like if you're a chicken concept and you're like, I'm gonna add a burger or a taco to my menu or whatever, I mean, unless you're Taco Bell is just the exception to this rule, but for the most part, consumers don't go to a restaurant and then everybody gets what they, and everybody just gets a wide variety of items. You decide, hey, we're going to go to this restaurant and get chicken fingers or something like that. That's kind of how that works. So yeah.
Is there a reason why Chili's has been able to kind of stand firm there and stand tall when those other ones have kind of been slipping a little bit?
Well, that's a great question. So what they did was, first off, they've got a really strong management team that is really, really good at marketing. The CEO of Chili's, years ago worked at Procter and Gamble, and he worked on the Old Spice deodorant commercial. And that's one of the marketing campaigns. So he worked on that and turning what Old Spice was. I mean, you go grow up and you remember Old Spice. It was something your grandfather
Yeah,
wore and stuff like that. It was an old,
aftershave.
dry, just nobody cared about it. And then they just kind of turned it into something completely out of just, if you remember those Old Spice commercials of a few years ago, just turning it into this kind of crazy stuff. And and then that brand took off. And then he ran KFC in the US for a while. And that was the last time KFC in the US has done anything whatsoever.
Hmm.
So they did very well, under Kevin Hochman. And then he goes to Chili's. And they did two things. First off, they focused on running good restaurants. At the end of the day, especially if you're going to sit down and eat a meal inside a restaurant, you want the food to be good, you want the service to be good, you want everything to be clean, da 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 da. Especially if you're going to a restaurant like Chili's,
Hmm.
right? Like if you're going to an old barbecue restaurant or whatever, that thing could look like trash, and
Hmm.
as long as the smoked meats taste good, right? But if you're going to Chili's, that restaurant has to be nice. So they focus on operations. They did cut the menu, so they only work on a few things. They really focused on them and upgraded the quality. But then two things happened last year. First off, they noticed that people were really mad about fast food prices, and rightly so. I mean, menu prices have gone up extraordinarily well, and the reason why is because their costs have gone up and they had to raise prices, and so they noticed how much fast food prices were going up and how much people were complaining about them on social media, and they started promoting some of their deals on social media, and that took off. And then they started noticing that people were doing these cheese pulls, and they started marketing those on social media as well,
Hmm.
and it completely took off. So it really is about a combination of, you operate really good restaurants, and then you have a management team that kind of understands how to, how to tap into to consumers and what they're thinking about right now, and then they just hit it hard really fast.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the only thing I don't get is when it comes to the money thing. I know they're two different categories. With
Yeah.
Chili's is a sit down and Taco Bell is a fast food, casual drive through kind of place. But it feels like they're as expensive as ever, right? Have you heard people complain about Taco Bell getting super expensive?
Yeah, I mean, fast food is much more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's at the end of the day. I mean, I mean, fast food prices are up like somewhere in the neighborhood of 42% since 2019. I mean, the reason why is their costs have gone up. So if you're running a restaurant, you have two big cost, two big costs, food and labor. And so somewhere in the neighborhood of two-thirds of your revenue goes to those two things. And then you have the rest of it goes for whatever franchise fees you have, rent, debt, all that other stuff. But like 65% goes to food and labor. And so between 2020 and 2023, thereabouts, the cost of both food and labor just took off. So they actually went up somewhere, probably about 40%, and that's why you saw menu prices increase to that extent.
Wow.
So, mhm.
Is
Oh
there
yeah.
is there any sign that might stabilize, that might go lower, or do you think this is it? We're here for the long haul. This is how much it's going to be.
Oh, well, that's a big economy question.
Yeah.
So it has stabilized. The increases have stabilized over the past year or so on both food. Food has been really stable for the past couple of years, and that's why, coincidentally, that's why grocery prices have stabilized and even fallen in some cases, because the prices their big cost is food. So when food cost goes up, that's when you see grocery prices take off. Um, they don't pay as much for labor. And so that's why you've seen your grocery prices be a bit more stable over the past couple of years than restaurant prices. Um, so food costs have been stable for the past couple of years. Labor costs still going up, really depending on market, but it's not as bad, and that should be stable. And then the big question is then we have things like tariffs and stuff like that that could be coming, and then you could see price increases. But frankly, the increases that you see because of tariffs are going to be much worse in many other areas than restaurants.
I asked you the three that are on the rise, the three kings. Who are three that are kind of really struggling right now that uh, are going to kind of really need to make some ground here?
Oh, well, that's another loaded question. There are all sorts. There are a lot of restaurants, man, and and something is always struggling. I mean, it's just, and a lot of restaurants have been struggling over the past few years. We've seen more bankruptcies last year, for instance, than we'd seen in a long time. That's we had the big Red Lobster bankruptcy. You may hear about that.
Yep, I do.
That was an abject disaster. And I could see that coming ages ago. Um,
Have they been able to pick it up since then?
you can. I mean, they've got a really good, they got new ownership and they got new management and their CEO there is pretty well regarded for the most part. So we'll see. Seafood's always tough, and seafood's one of the few food areas that could really face some serious tariff pressures coming on. So that might be an issue. But I mean, the big issue really is Red Lobster was bought a few years ago by this shrimp supplier out of Taiwan, based in Bangkok. And then a couple of years ago, that shrimp supplier did two things. Number one, they directed their entire shrimp supply to their own operation, which might sound fine, which is generally okay, but it can become an issue if in situations like bankruptcies and stuff like that, if it's viewed as a conflict. So they directed their entire shrimp supply to basically to their own operation of Red Lobster, and then they ran the all-you-can-eat shrimp deal. You remember that?
Yes.
So they did an all-you-can-eat shrimp deal priced at $20, and to sell a lot of shrimp. So, and these things happen right after one another. And the shrimp deal was done over the protests of a lot of members of the management team. as well. So, and then you add on this a restaurant chain that had already been struggling coming out of the pandemic because all full service restaurant chains really had a tough time, obviously for obvious reasons during the pandemic.
Yep.
And then on top of that, about a decade ago, a previous owner, a private equity firm, sold all the real estate. So Red Lobster had owned its own buildings for the most part, and then they sold the real estate and then leased it to investors and then leased it back. And what that did was it essentially put a lot of pressure on each individual restaurant to make a profit. And so then you fast forward a decade with that all-you-can-eat shrimp deal, pricing at $20, and it took off on social media. And so everybody was going to Red Lobster and eating a bunch of shrimp. The restaurants couldn't handle it, and it lost money and filed for bankruptcy. It was, yeah. Usually there's a lot of there's a lot of dumb management decisions
Yeah.
in these things. So Hardee's is one I'm looking at right now. If you're looking at another restaurant chain, they're badly struggling,
Yeah.
um, and have been for a while. That's a really big one. Obviously, TGI Fridays, Hooters is another concept that just filed for bankruptcy. They've been struggling for a while, and they're going to have to, um, you know, they're going to kind of have to get back to sort of the way they used to be, which was sort of a fun restaurant chain and stuff like that. So those are the ones off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah. So it's you wouldn't say it's a golden era for these places for the chain restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the thing about restaurants and the thing that I like about covering it, their concepts come and go all the time. And so you always have you just have somebody creates a new idea, like Raising Cane's. It was just nothing over, like a decade ago. You ever been to Dave's Hot Chicken? There's another one. Crumble Cookies was created like just a few years ago, and
Hmm.
now they're one of the 60 largest restaurant chains in the US.
Wow.
And then on the other hand, you get companies that just kind of fall out of favor and go out of business and stuff like that, like, Old Country Buffet, or you got Quiznos, which at one point had 5,000 locations and now has got a fewer than 150, stuff like that. There's always companies that come and go.
They're still hanging on, huh? Quiznos.
Barely.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, barely.
You know what's one? I think I actually got somebody in Minnesota. And I think there's maybe one or two left here in Chicago. I, I need someone to revive Baker Square. Do you remember Baker Square?
You know who bought them?
Who?
Famous
Oh,
Dave's.
I did know that actually, because
Yeah,
you could buy their
Famous
pie.
Dave's bought them. And really the reason why Famous Dave's bought them is they wanted to add the pies to their restaurants. But yeah, I mean their pies were amazing. But yeah,
Great.
that was another one. I think they had filed for bankruptcy and just really struggled.
Yeah, like I think there might be like 10 of them left or something like that.
Yeah, no, not a whole lot.
No, and the pies they should have just been a pie shop. Like they would
They
have
should have.
crushed it with that. So
Yeah,
I
for
hope they
sure.
don't. I hope they don't completely go kaput because that's like a nostalgia thing too. There were so many growing up around here.
Hmm.
So I hope they can figure it out. What's
Yeah.
what's been the greatest pivot move that you've seen since you've covered this business? Does that make sense?
You mean pivot by a restaurant company?
Yeah, like a restaurant company who was really doing poorly, and it's like, hey, we're doing this, and it took off like wildfire.
By far is Domino's.
Okay,
By a long shot.
what exactly did they do that changed
So
the game?
yeah, a little history lesson. Domino's I mean, they basically created food delivery for the most part. I mean, there were concepts that did food delivery, but they basically made it made food delivery vital for pizza concepts. But if you go back to say about 2006, 7, 8, right before the Great Recession, they were heavily in debt. Their sales were just in a tank. Their sales were absolutely in the tank. They were, we thought that they were going to go file for bankruptcy. In 2009, you could buy a share of stock in Domino's for $1, $2 maybe.
Wow.
And they did they did a few things. Um, First off, they decided to change the recipe of their pizza. So they completely changed the recipe for the pizza and upgraded it. I mean, you may or may not like it, but they upgraded the pizza recipe, and then they went on advertising and said, "Our old pizza sucked. We've got a better recipe now." It was a remarkable advertising campaign. No, nobody. So they did that, and then they started focusing very, very heavily on technology. So, and then marketing it. So for a while, you probably still could, like you could, they were the ones sort of a pioneer of the idea that you could order food on your phone, and, um, and you could order in your car, you could order by voice. They made it really easy to order a pizza, and then their sales took off. Their sales went up, I think, almost every single quarter for I think 10, 11 years, and their stock went from went from $1. I think at one point they were up five, close to $500 a share. One of the most six. I mean, their stock price was up there with, companies like Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that in terms of it, the percentage of increase. So you would have made a lot of money if you would have just put a bunch of money into Domino's stock in 2009, and they revolutionized sort of the pizza business, and then they became the largest pizza chain in the world, overtaking Pizza Hut and Papa John's, and they still do, I mean, comparatively well compared to many of their other competitors, but yeah, oh yeah, Domino's pretty much by a long shot.
They just stripped it down to the studs and they said, hey, we're going to tell everyone we did that. And we are going to try to come back in a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
Smart.
they did really well.
Hey guys, let's pause for a second to talk about ChevyDriveChicago.com. It's a new season, but it's always truck season at your local Chevy dealer. ChevyDriveChicago.com has all of the information you need to research your future Chevy truck and locate a dealer near you. Maybe you're looking for something a little smaller for summer street parking. The Chevy lineup of SUVs has it all. Great styles at great prices. You'll look good and feel good about what you're doing. About what you're driving, excuse me. If an EV is what you need, your local Chevy dealer is ready to take you for a test drive and show you all of the latest technology in these top-tier electric SUVs. I could definitely co-sign that one. PFT has it's like a maroonish, Lance, right? It's like a
Yeah, it's like a darker red. Yeah,
darker
it's nice,
red,
nice color.
and it's electric and it's sharp. I always see it in our parking lot. It's very cool, and he's very happy with it. I know. So go check out that EV Blazer, or really anything in the Chevy fleet. It's all good stuff. Just make sure you head to ChevyDriveChicago.com to learn more and find your dealer today. Pizza Hut. That's interesting. How annoying do you think they are finding it right now? Where, I think they kind of maybe pivoted towards that model too, delivery fast, hot, whatever. Whereas people now, they're like, we miss the old Pizza Hut, we miss the old red roof, and we miss the old, book it thing. Like that's got to be just brutal for them.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I mean, you can see why they did that. I mean, we don't eat pizza inside restaurants anymore. And so if they had remained a full service concept, we'd probably be wondering, saying that they lost business to Domino's or
True.
whatever. But like if I was Pizza Hut, frankly, and frankly, I hope somebody from Pizza Hut was listening, I would have at least one, um, really well done old red roof restaurant in every major market. So like I live in Minneapolis, I would be able to go to one. And or, if I was in Chicago, maybe you have a couple. Dallas, you pick it. Because people really do like it.
Mm-hmm.
And nostalgia does work. I mean, we've been talking about Chili's and Baker Square and concepts like that, and people, I mean, nostalgia is um, a real good marketing tool for a lot of companies. That's actually one of the things that McDonald's likes to tap into periodically, just like taps into nostalgia. And I think that's what I would do because we have a red roof concept near me actually, because they do have a few of those classics ones, and it's just run down, poorly operated, and it's not really they don't really focus on it. It's not really like an old Pizza Hut.
Mhm.
Certainly that I remember. But if they're annoyed, it's kind of their own fault. They're the ones that did it.
I love that idea, though. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic idea. Just give the people a couple. If they
hmm
want the nostalgia, it's there. If not, I think, like, as far as the chains go, I still think they do a good job.
hmm
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do it really well, do a good job, and I think people will go to it. But you gotta put some energy behind it. It's like anything else. Like, if you put effort and energy behind it and then you market it really well, they'd be able to get people there for sure.
for sure. As far as I said, the biggest pivot, you said Domino's and how they were able to rise from the ashes. Who's the opposite? Who's fumble? Who's 3-1 lead that was blown? Who needs to be studied? Who's the downfall of which
Mm.
place?
Oh my goodness. You know, that's gotta be Subway. That's gotta be Subway. I mean, I could tell you about Quiznos, but Quiznos is a different animal. Subway right now has closed more restaurants than any restaurant chain in the United States over the past decade. So they've closed like 7,000 plus restaurants just in the US, and they closed a few thousand internationally as well. Um, they were they're still the largest restaurant chain in the US based on the number of locations. It's kind of nonsense way to measure these things because a typical Subway restaurant makes $490,000 in sales per year. That's like 1/10 the size of McDonald's. Well, maybe like 1/8, you with proper math. Um,
You said
yeah,
Canes was 6 million a year.
yeah, Raising Cane's is 6 million, and a Subway does like 490,000.
Wow.
Franchisees can't make any money, especially in a lot of markets. To put that 490,000 in context, that's only slightly more than what they did in 2009. So they haven't really done well. People still think of it, if anytime I say anything about Subway, somebody on and comments will mention the $5 footlong. They haven't had the $5 footlong since 2012. Not really. And now, that marketing campaign was amazing when it was out, but people still remember it like 16, 15, 10, 13 years later. And yeah, and people still remember it, but now makes their subs look really expensive. They don't have a permanent CEO right now. They were just sold. Franchisees are really angry. They're pushing back at, any marketing discount that gets proposed and stuff like that. They're a real problem. They're in a tight spot. That's probably one.
Yeah, that's tough because it always does feel like they were kind of a bubble, though, right? Their whole model of we just want to be
Yeah,
the biggest and
right.
cheapest.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, their decline started in 2015 with the Jared thing.
yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it was actually in 2012 after they went from the foot long, and then Jared hit, and then they've just never recovered.
Yeah, and it's a mixture of things too, right? Because
Mhm.
I think they have tried recently, right? Like they did a couple collabs, and that's all hot in the streets. People doing collabs, like they did the Auntie Anne's and the churros and a bunch of so like they're trying, but it's just like the competition has also gotten so sharp with Jersey
Mhm.
Mike's and Jimmy John's and all these places.
Yeah, yeah. They foot long nachos with Doritos and stuff
Yeah,
like that. It's part of their new contract with Pepsi.
yeah,
So yeah, they've yeah. I mean, sure, they're trying. I mean, yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, it just needs a lot of work. It's a
yeah.
chain that needs a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely true. I feel like, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Like, how's Burger King doing? Because that would have been my guess. Because there was a point where it's like they were Shaq to McDonald's Kobe. They were Jordan
Right?
and Pippen, and then now that like feels like they've fallen off a lot.
They have, yeah, they have. They're sort of in the early innings of they're trying to they're doing a lot to fix things. And I'm not entirely certain your listeners, I don't know how much your listeners want to listen to that, but because it's a long story. But yeah, they don't make a typical Burger King does like a $1.6 million in revenue per year, and compared again to 4 million for McDonald's or 2.1 for Wendy's. Um, they they just have a lot of locations in markets that just don't do very well. They've and that's been kind of an issue lately. Their marketing has not quite hit as much as you'd want it to and stuff like that. So yeah, they've definitely had their issues. They've closed a number of locations. They had a number of franchisees that filed for bankruptcy in 2022 and 23, and stuff like that. Some very, very big franchisees. They closed a ton of locations. Historically, they've struggled more than any major brand. They've struggled as much as anybody else. So they're another one. But
Yeah. And they're
you know,
another thing. They just completely got away from everything. Like they needed a nostalgia rebrand. Bring back the old fries, the old chicken tenders, all of it. Like they changed everything, Jonathan. I
Mhm.
never understood it.
Right. Yeah. Well, they had one of the biggest failures, biggest marketing failures of recent vintage. Everybody was coming out with these fancy chicken sandwiches in 2019, 20, and 21 after Popeye's chicken sandwich. And they created one that was, when done well, was might have been the best one of all of them. And it was a really exceptional product. The problem is it was too complicated for the franchisees to make. Took too
Mm,
long. Not really what they are specialized in doing. There were so many steps. You had to hand bread it and whatever. And so so it really struggled, and it failed monumentally. And the company and franchisees put a lot of money and a lot of effort into it, and then it didn't work, and then they didn't really advertise anything else, and that's one of the big triggers behind all these franchisee bankruptcies. So yeah, I mean they've had a bunch of missteps.
See, that's a good nugget there, Jonathan. I did not know the chicken sandwich was an issue of it was hard to make.
Yeah.
So that's
It was also a stupid name. It was called the Chiking.
the king. I
Yeah,
vaguely
yeah,
remember those commercials now. But yeah, I don't know. They definitely got to get back to their roots because I don't know what they
right.
is it what's who has the crown now? Is it chicken or beef? It feels like chicken.
Oh, chicken. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, chicken. Chicken is Yeah, chicken is the most popular protein in the country right now. McDonald's sells as much chicken as it does beef,
That's
which is
crazy.
yeah, it is crazy. Um, uh, if you look at limited service burger chains, sales last year grew just 1.4% total. That's the entire chain universe, just 1.4%, which based on 4% menu price increases is basically means that they lost customers. Um, chicken chicken sales grew 9%. And if you look at fast casual chicken chains like Raising Cane's, they were up 24%.
Wow.
Yeah. So chicken is absolutely king. You got a bunch of really, really good players in that market, and people like chicken. Chicken is great.
Yeah, chicken is booming. That's for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I brought up the collabs earlier. That's one thing that's like real hot in the streets, right? Everyone's getting together with this brand, Milk
Mhm.
Bar and Taco Bell or whatever. That's Is that seen as like a big pivot, a big way to kind of get some quick sales?
I mean, it can. Yeah, if you do it right, it can. And if it works real well. I mean, I think you had Wendy's with the Girl Scout Frosty that they had back in February. That works. And they're going big into that. I mean, if you do it well, it can work. McDonald's had the Minecraft movie promotion that just killed it for them. Kind of a no-brainer if you know anything about teenagers and whatnot. Minecraft went create that one did exceptionally well. They ran out of ran out of product like in 2 weeks out of the figurines and stuff that they were giving away with it. So yeah, I mean collaborations can work really well if they're well conceived and you get the benefit of the combined marketing and whatnot. I mean they can also not work. So I mean or just not quite do as well as you think like any other marketing. But usually if it's done really well, if you just have a very good um if you have a very very good collaboration that just pairs well with your brand, it can work real well.
Is there a move that's been made in your time covering the business that was one of the biggest head scratchers?
Oh yeah. I mean, a couple of them. One was there was a while where Pizza Hut went with these tried to replicate fast casual pizza chains. By the way, fast casual pizza concepts like Mod Pizza and Blaze Pizza really struggled. Um, but you have um, they a few years ago they just tried to pivot to these fancy pizzas and stuff, fancy smaller pizzas, and it just failed miserably.
Yeah.
There was one time where Applebee's tried to market hand cut steaks, and all their franchisees invested very heavily into special grills. They trained staff on cutting how to cut a steak from a giant hunk of meat.
Wow.
And yeah, that one was a miserable failure, and it led to the firing of the CEO. Oh yeah, the Chick King was another big one. That was a big failure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big industry. You just have ideas that sound good, and you put a lot of effort into it, and then it doesn't work.
Is there an item on the flip side where you thought it was kind of dumb coming out, but it's proved to be a great move?
Oh, the one that always comes to mind was when McDonald's first started doing adult Happy Meals. And, I have one. I have this right here. So I always keep toys, and you had these four-eyed characters. Um, and I'd never heard of the company, and now I'm blanking out on the name of it anyway. But they started these Happy Meals aimed at adults with these figurines from this company I hadn't heard of, and I still can't even remember it. No, I'm not even thinking it off the top of my head, but yeah, and I'm like, really? And then it worked marvelously. Those things sold out in like less than 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, every so often, you get some of these things that work. Um, you get some of these things that you don't think will work real well, and then they just kind of take off. Um, or entire food sectors.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. Is there? I asked you the three, the three, like top dogs that are really impressive right now. The three really struggling. Is there three that are kind of waiting in the wings they're kind of bullish on coming up?
Oh, have you heard of Seven Brew?
I've not.
Seven Brew is a drive-through beverage concept. So, coffee and stuff like that's drive-through only. Their sales grew 170% last year.
Wow.
Fastest growing chain in the country at the moment. And they do exceptionally well. A lot of beverages. Swig is another one that's a drive-through soda concept where you can mix sodas and create dirty sodas. That's doing really well. Um, I talked to the founder of a chain out of Colorado called Snarf Sandwiches. Their sales grew 50% last year. Really in three states, Colorado, Missouri, and Texas, but they're growing really well. That's another one. One interesting thing to watch out for will be some of these concepts coming out of Asia, China in particular. So there's a coffee concept that's going to open here in New York soon called Luckin Coffee. It's now the largest coffee concept in China, very tech heavy and stuff like that, and going to try to undercut the market. That's one to watch out for. So yeah, there's always something coming
Yeah.
in the business, and those are off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's kind of all the questions I had prepared. Anything I didn't get to here that is particularly interesting or people would like to know?
Oh, all kinds of things probably. No, it's a fun business to cover. It
Yeah.
really is.
No, it sounds like it. Like, what's
Mhm.
your day look like tomorrow? Who you sitting on a call? Yeah. What are you doing?
I get meetings and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Tomorrow will be a relatively easy day because it's before the weekend, before a
Yeah.
3-day weekend. Everybody's going to be off, which may make my day peaceful,
That's
actually.
good. That's
Actually
good.
get work done.
And do the places do they tend to like you, or are they kind of do they have a vendetta against you, or is it
It really
different by
depends.
place?
I was, yeah. I think somebody told me once that they said that, the industry hates and loves you. That's what somebody told me once. So, that they appreciate the coverage, but they really sometimes don't really like it when I call them. So, and another one, it was McDonald's told me once that, we don't always like what you say, but we know it's good for us.
Hey,
So, you know,
that's a middle ground.
yeah, I'll take it.
Exactly.
Actually, I'll tell you this one. I will tell you this one story.
I love it. All for the
Boston
stories.
Market. You're familiar with Boston Market?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Complete collapse.
One left in
They
Illinois,
were,
I believe.
yeah, they only have like 14 locations left. And without getting too much details, basically it's being very deliberately run into the ground. The owner, the guy who bought it in 2020 wasn't paying his bills. So he wasn't paying his rent. He wouldn't pay his rent. He wouldn't pay his vendors. He lost this $15 million lawsuit by US Foods, the distributor, da 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 da. And I was covering this very intently. He told one of my colleagues, told me one of my colleagues that I would follow him into the bathroom for a story. It wasn't meant as a compliment, but I took it as one. I'm not sure I actually would follow him in the bathroom. That's a really good question. Would I actually do that? I would probably wait outside the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it depends. Maybe if it was at the stall or the urinal, it kind of
Right.
depends, right?
Unless I thought he was actually doing something in the bathroom that I should write about. Like usually, yeah.
Yeah,
And right.
yeah, that was crazy. I remember I went to my local one. One day, I had a big orange sign on the door. It's like, nope, the city of whatever has
Yep.
revoked the license. They did not pay the bill.
Yeah,
So,
one of the craziest things I've ever experienced.
are they just going to die out or what's the,
Yeah, well, they that's a good question. I mean, probably. I mean, they're kind of operating the restaurants by I have no idea. Just sort of buying stuff they're like buying stuff at like Costco and stuff like that, or coming up with temporary deals with distributors to get food and stuff. It's kind of crazy, but they usually own the real estate if they have a store open.
that is crazy.
Mhm.
Jonathan, thanks so much for your time, man. Where can people find your stuff? I could give out your X account, whatever you want to plug in.
Yeah. Oh, I'm everywhere. So I'm on this restaurantbusinessonline.com. You can also find me at TikTok, at Jonathan D. Mays. I got a TikTok for some reason. And then X at Jonathan Mays. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, and you liked, we work with Portillo's too. You liked their breakfast. I saw that the other day.
Their breakfast was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. I love Portillo's. I'm a big fan of Portillo's, actually. And I'm
Yeah.
not just saying that because you're an advertiser.
Yeah, no, I mean, they don't pay you. They just pay me. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, no, I love Portillo's. No, it's good. Yeah, it's delicious. And so I like it. I mean, the breakfast of the question is, whether it's too messy or stuff like that. But I thought the food was good. The hash browns were amazing.
hash browns are great. It reminded me of like the Taco John's. Have you ever had those? The
Yeah.
Olays?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, it reminded me of those.
Potato Olays.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part about Portillo's is that, like, you say, like, you know what you're getting when you go to Raising Cane's. Obviously, it's only chicken. Their menu is just so wide and everything's
Yeah.
really good.
Oh,
So,
it's crazy. It is crazy. That's one of the exceptions.
yeah, and I think they're going to blow up here soon, too. So,
They're growing real fast in Texas and
yeah,
and South Florida, places like that.
for sure. Jonathan, thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Cool.
See you, man.